Hey everybody, waitingfornextyear.com podcast. I'm your host Craig Lindell, and today I'm going to be talking to Will Burge. I don't even know exactly what about yet. I'm sure we'll talk about the Cavaliers, the Indians. The home opener was this week, and there will be plenty of other things to talk about with the NFL draft and whatever the Browns are up to and what they're going to do. So we're going to do that. But before I get there, I want to thank we've got a ton of people supporting us on Patreon. We're very appreciative of all the people who are doing that. Nobody has to. It's all voluntary, and it's been really amazing to have so many people support us. So please check it out. Consider it. patreon.com/WFNY, patreon.com/WFNY. And now here's Will Burge.
Waiting for next year. Waiting for next year.
There's Will Burge. How's it going, sir?
Good, man. How are you?
It's like deja vu because I screwed up and I pressed the wrong button, so we're like redoing the first minute of the podcast. Thankfully, we only wasted 48 seconds.
It's okay. You know what? They were a wasted 48 seconds because I was just babbling anyway.
Now you're going to do it even better. So you've got a brand new show coming out on iHeart, and it's interesting because, you know, you're as you're going to explain, you know, what is radio? What are podcasts? Does it any of it really matter? It's all audio. So what's this new show?
It's so basically we are cutting the cord from traditional radio, and my new show will be Monday through Friday, noon to 2, starting this Friday, called The Lunch Break. And people have been asking, you know, what station is it on? What station is it on? It's not on a station. We're basically the first show that's iHeartRadio app exclusive. So we'll have our own channel in the iHeartRadio app. We have a website, makelunchnotssuck.com. That's where you can stream the show every day, catch up everything on the iHeartRadio app, sports, comedy, music. We have some enormous guests lined up. Bill Burr is joining us in studio in the first month. We have some Playboy Playmates. A particular Cavs player is supposed to join us next week. So it's cool. It's kind of redefining exactly what radio is.
That's really cool. And the fact that they let you have that website name, I'm not sure that they would do that if it was on like 96.5 or WTAM or one of the other iHeart stations.
Yeah, and I mean the cool thing is I think for so long we've looked at radio as what it used to be, and what radio used to be was what's in your car and a boom box in your house or something. But so many people have traveled off of the traditional radio waves, and we're 100 million users on the iHeartRadio app. I mean, that's insane to think about. And everybody's trying to push for online content, but they're kind of one and the same at this point. I mean, if you're making good radio content, it's being put in online anyway. And if you have good online content you're talking about on the radio, there really is no real barriers between the two anymore. And that's kind of what we do, just breaking them down and opening the whole thing wide up.
Well, and that's the thing, too. It's like when I'm on vacation, I would tell you that I listen to the radio, but it's usually like, the first thing I do when I get in the rental car is I figure out how to Bluetooth to my phone, and whether I'm listening to something from iHeart in Cleveland or one of the local sports stations, like I'm listening to Cleveland stuff. If it's podcasts, if it's quote-unquote radio, it's all kind of the same thing. So what's the show going to be like?
It's me, man. It's going to be eclectic. It's going to be fast. It's going to be fun. I would say, the way I've kind of described it to other people is think of like a Maxim magazine, but more sports and on the radio. That's kind of what it is. I mean, just fun. On Fridays, we'll have a handcraft cocktail bartender come in and show us the cocktail of the week so people can learn something new to drink on the week. Singer from Skid Row scheduled to join us on Friday, which is crazy because, it's Skid Row. We have, we're talking sports. I mean, basically whatever's going on in the world, just trying to make it fun. People, that's the tough part of the day, man. Noon to 2 is kind of, you're looking towards the end of the day, but you're not quite there yet. So we're just trying to help people to get through it.
So it's also kind of it's instantaneously a national platform. You'll be tied into people who are physically in Cleveland a lot of the time, but you're on a national platform from the word jump, right?
Yeah, it's distributed everywhere, and it's basically there is no limit. So I was going to say the limits are endless, but there isn't any. I mean, it can go as far as we make it. And the other cool thing is, working with the web people at iHeart, they're super excited because there's no parameters on this now. This isn't a WTAM interview that we do. This is now an iHeart Radio interview. So when we interview, the lead singer of Skid Row in a couple of days, they could push that out on 100.7 WMMS. They could push that out on whatever other stations we have. When we have Hunter Hayes, who's a big country singer who's supposed to be coming on with us next month, They could push that on 99.5. When we have a Cavs player on, we can push it on 1100. It's kind of a content farm as well for them. So they're excited about it, and that kind of gives us a platform that pushes out to everybody here in Cleveland, no matter what you listen to, no matter what you like, and also the ability to push it out to everybody in the entire world.
That's really cool. Is it uncensored?
It is well, here's the thing. It is uncensored because there is no FCC rules, but we will keep it as close to radio as possible. I'm sure there'll be some slip-ups here or there, but we don't want to make anybody uncomfortable and not want them to listen. But yeah,
so kind of
Craig,
PG-13.
Exactly. I push the boundaries anyway. I'm sure the FCC has had more than one discussion about me and what I've done on the radio, so it'll be more of the same.
That's so cool, though, because at the same time, when you do have Bill Burr in there, you don't want to be like tugging on your collar, sweating.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's wide open, and then if that content is used somewhere else, somebody wants to pull it and use it on air in one of the stations. Obviously, it could be edited later, but you don't want to limit, creatively what people want to say or what they want to do inside the studio, and that's what we're trying to make. We just want to make a really fun show that kind of breaks down the barriers between, I listen to this station, you listen to this station, so you only have this much reach. You could say what you want. It's going to go to whoever wants to receive this information or receive these interviews or receive the stuff we're talking about. I just think it's really cool. I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, and the last thing that we'll talk about before we move on to other topics about the show is and this is something you and I have talked about in reference to other shows without maligning any of the hosts. 2 hours is perfect. 2 hours is perfect. You don't need 5 hours. You don't need 4 hours.
Hey, especially when you're the host having to carry the damn thing. I feel bad for, I love the guys on 92.3. I listen to 92 a lot. I know I'm not supposed to say that because I work at 1100. And by the way, you'll still be able to hear me on 1100, pre and post Cavs, Indians, Brown games. I'll be on weekends and stuff there still. In fact, tonight I'm doing the pregame show for the final Cavs home game courtside. But I feel bad for the guys at 92.3 sometimes, man. 5 hours is tough. It really is. It's a tough show. It's a grind. You end up having to repeat a lot of the content because your listenership changes so often. I completely agree. I think 2 hours is the perfect amount of time for a show. You can be fast, you can be fun, and you leave the people wanting more, which is always a good thing. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll definitely check that out. We'll link it up in the show notes for anybody who didn't write down the makelunchNotSuck.com.
Yes, makelunchNotSuck.com.
That's so fun. Okay, so let's talk a little. Where do you want to go first? Which team do you want to start with?
Oh, geez, there's so much to talk about. You know what? Let's just shake them up in a hat and pick one out. Let's roll.
All right, let's rip off the Band-Aid and the Browns. Have you ever been less excited for a draft where the team had the number one pick in your life?
You know what? I think I'm the opposite of that. I'm extremely excited about this draft.
Really?
Yeah. You know what? And it's not because of the stupid rumors. Now, we have the Browns thinking about taking a quarterback number one overall. Blah blah blah. I can't see it. They're not stupid. I think they're going to end up taking Myles Garrett. I think this is everybody's posturing and them putting things out there to try to get San Francisco to trade up from 2, whatever it is. But Craig, I'm excited about this because I truly believe this could be an unbelievable milestone in the turnaround of the Browns. Or this could be another draft we talk about for the next 5 or 6 years. Either way, this is going to be monumentous as we move forward with this team. And I actually do think if they come out of this draft with a couple high-impact players, maybe even they come out with one of these quarterbacks, whether it's 12, they trade up, or they get them at the beginning of the second round, I think either some really, really good is going to happen or something really, really bad is going to happen. Either way, it's going to be entertaining.
Yeah, it's the biggest potential they've had maybe since 99 in terms of draft capital or whatever. But there's no way anybody can predict anything in terms of whether they're going to do well or they're not going to do well because everybody's guessing.
Yeah, it's such an unknown, and we keep referring back to last year's draft, and we don't even really know if last year's draft was good or bad.
No.
You just don't know. You can't know after 1 year. That's impossible. And it depends on who you talk to. Some people feel like they did way better than others. Some people, I've heard Tony Grossi say it was one of the worst drafts in Browns history. I think he might be losing it a little bit, but it's impossible to know after 1 year. So we really don't have anything to draw from about what these guys might do, about what kind of potential they have. Is there some worry? Sure. These aren't football, quote unquote, analyst guys. They haven't been in the league for a long time, breaking down players and scouting film and all that stuff. They're trying to, I guess, go a little bit of a different route, even though I don't believe they're just letting computers pop out names and that's what they're selecting. But because it's such an unknown, I think that's what makes it kind of exciting.
Yeah, well, and on top of that, even if they turn out to be Chris Grant, this Myles Garrett might be Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's certain players that no matter how bad you are, they're going to make you all right. They'll make you look okay in that draft, and that's a perfect analysis. I mean, Grant wasn't very good at drafting players, or at least he wasn't good at identifying the ones that should stick around after he drafted them. But Kyrie Irving was a no-brainer. Sometimes you just got to take the guy. And if you remember back to that draft, remember it was Derek Williams or Kyrie Irving. Derek Williams or Kyrie, and there was people who legitimately wanted Derek Williams number one overall, but the no-brainer was Kyrie Irving. I have a feeling, or at least I hope, that's the way it's going to be with Myles Garrett as well.
All right, let's leave the Browns behind. We'll save the Indians for last. So the Cavs, you said you're doing the pregame for the last game. By the time people are hearing this, it'll be Thursday. And the Cavaliers are looking forward to the playoffs. Does anything that happened since the All-Star break concern you about their prospects for the playoffs?
You know what? Anybody who says no is either lying or they're just being naive. I mean, yeah, of course there's things that concern me. And this is how I described it the other day on the air. I said, look, the Cavs, every Cavs team that has LeBron, or every LeBron James team has another gear for the playoffs. They just do. It's the way it is, and they're going to have another gear. But I think as LeBron gets older, you used to be able to just pencil him in and say, best player in the playoffs, dominate every game all the way through. That's always going to be the case until it isn't. So we don't know as he gets older that margin for error with LeBron gets a little bit wider every single year, I think. And that means that the other players have to be better. And I think while LeBron is still good enough to be able to just hit that switch, turn it on for the playoffs, and roll through a bunch of teams, I don't know if the rest of this team is that good. Actually, I don't know if anybody else in the league is that good. I mean, he's just that type of talent. Everybody else has to work at it day in and day out. I think they'll be fine. I can't imagine anybody in the East really giving them too much of a trouble, except for maybe Washington. That's the one team that does concern me, just matchup-wise a little bit. But I think ending up in the 2 spot's all right. I think it's actually better than the 1 spot. I think they'll be fine. They'll get to the finals. But you know what? If they got bounced out in the Eastern Conference Finals, Craig, I think we can all look back at everything that happened since the All-Star break and say we kind of should have saw it coming.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But then again, I start to think about whether I think the Cavaliers will be able to bomb from 3 in 8 of the first 14 games enough that they'll knock out their first 2 opponents. And I just can't see them getting knocked out in either of the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, and that's the thing is there's, as I said before, I know people talked about the different matchups. Like Boston doesn't worry me in the slightest bit. We've seen this story before. Isaiah Thomas, great player, but I think Isaiah Thomas will always be a great regular season player. And until he has another weapon on the floor with him, another big-time weapon, he won't be a great postseason player because postseason defense is a completely different animal. The way you can clamp down on guys, the way you can be physical. Look at how Steph Curry has been taken out of the last 2 finals by the Cavaliers. I mean, they're physical with him. They grab him off screens. They bump him. Every time he comes anywhere near the paint, someone's putting a body on him. That takes those guys out. So Boston doesn't really worry me. While Toronto has the experience, and if Kyle Lowry is healthy, they are certainly dangerous. I mean, we know what Toronto is, and they keep trying to come back with the same team, and I just don't think that team's built to beat the Cavaliers, even with Serge Ibaka. Like I said, the one team that possibly I think could give the Cavs fits, if they had a really down series, would be the Washington Wizards, just because that backcourt is so good, and the Cavs have not shown that they can guard a backcourt consistently. But once again, it'd have to be the Wizards playing, out of their minds, and the Cavs playing bad just for it to get to 7 games, I think.
Yeah, because I think the Cavaliers, I agree with you about the Wizards, but the Cavaliers should still be able to outshoot them and outscore them, even if they're giving up way too much to that backcourt.
It would take an A+ effort from the Wizards, and I think it would take a C- effort from the Cavs for that thing to be a series, basically. I mean, the Wizards would have to play out of their mind. It would have to be what happened to the Cavs when LeBron went to the first time they played Orlando, and Orlando played literally the greatest series. Every one of those players in that series never had a better series in their entire life, never had a better stretch of games, and the Cavs played like crap. It would have to be one of those scenarios. Yeah.
So before we move on to the Indians, I just remind everybody we're talking to Will Burge, new show, The Lunch Break, 12 to 2, Monday to Friday. Do they need the iHeartRadio app to listen to it?
No, like I said, they could just go to makelunchNotSuck.com to listen to it live, and then if you want to listen back, it'll have its own iHeartRadio app channel. where you can listen to everything we've done. So you can download the app if you want to hear old stuff, but if you want to just stream it, you could just go to makelunchnotsuck.com and won't need the app at all.
That's cool. That's cool. All right, Indians, I want to talk about actual baseball. And this team deserves to be talked about as an actual baseball team. But it was opening day this week, and Scene Magazine had the story today that Manfred has pretty much officially said that he wants Chief Wahoo gone. So,
I mean, look, here's the thing. I think it's probably better for everybody that just goes away. I know some people are like diehard and love Chief Wahoo, and I get that people have a connection to mascots of teams and some of the things of that nature. I've always said this. Look, I'm not Native American. I can't really decide what's I think it's negative or shines a negative light on Native Americans. If they find it offensive, then it probably should go. But I think at this point, we've exhausted the topic so far, and it creates so much drama between people. The fact that it's going away is probably a good thing, because then we just don't have to hear about it anymore, and there doesn't have to be this debate anymore. We don't have to, see articles on it when they hopefully get back to the World Series, and we don't have to, on opening day, see protests anymore. I know some people say, oh, well, it's just liberals, and it's a liberal way of thinking. But you know what? At some point, the annoyance isn't worth it. And if baseball itself, the entire league says, hey, man, we're sick of the distractions, I think the Indians should be like, fine, whatever, and just welcome the change.
Well, and that's ultimately where I came down on it. Like, I'm kind of anti-Wahoo at this point, but more than anything else, this team, it's not the team where all we had to talk about was the Dolans being cheap or Mark Shapiro not doing a good job. This team has Francisco Lindor and Edwin Encarnacion and Corey Kluber. Like, I just want to talk about baseball. I don't want to talk about this other stuff anymore. And it feels like now there's something that can be distracted.
Yeah, no, you're right. And this team deserves to have the focus solely on what they're doing on the baseball field. I mean, this looks like it's going to be an extremely special season. Just watching them play, Craig, it feels special. It feels like you can't shut the game off for the seventh inning, even if they're down 3 or 4 runs, because they have the potential to come back. And you can't miss a game because any one of these pitchers could end up throwing a no-hitter at any time because they're all that good. And this like I said, I just don't think the distraction is worth it anymore. The fight for Chief Wahoo, and like I said, I get it. Some people love it. Some people don't want to get rid of it. Some people still call Progressive Field the Jake, and I understand that. But sooner or later, the distraction just isn't worth it anymore, and this team deserves to have the attention on it as a baseball team, not as a symbol for what some people would say is a racist caricature.
Yeah, so to the baseball itself, the home opener turned out to be a walk-off winner. I don't know what was more exciting, Michael Brantley slapping the ball or the way Frankie Lindor ran the bases, but all of it, just everything. When was the last time you saw a player like Francisco Lindor on the Indians roster? For me, I think it might be Victor.
Yeah. Oh man. You know what? I'm gonna go on a limb and say I don't think we have, at least not in my lifetime, I don't think we've ever seen a player like Francisco Lindor. I think the potential in that kid is not just one of the better players in Major League Baseball, but I think all this stuff is not being overblown. I think he has the potential to be the face of Major League Baseball. I mean, he's that good. He's that energetic. He's that exciting. I tweeted it yesterday during the opener when he hit the home run. Like, I don't know if this kid has power or if he just has a you make a mistake, I make you pay swing. But even if you have that swing and you don't have power, you're going to hit a bunch of home runs. I mean, that was the worry with this kid, right? It was like, oh, not the worry, but they said he's going to be a great glove. We don't know what he'll be offensively. And, I mean, you're looking at a guy that every time he's at the plate has the potential to do something exciting. Every time he's on the base pass has the potential to do something exciting. Every time the ball's hit to him at shortstop, he's got the potential to make a web gem and create a highlight. And I just don't know if we've ever seen a player like that. I mean, I don't know if you can put him inside a box because the Indians have never had that face of the game player before. Even in the 90s, they had some of the best players in baseball, but they didn't have that marketability aspect to him as well. I think he's a completely different animal.
It's Will Burge from the Lunch Break, iHeart Media, 12 to 2, Monday to Friday. I think back to Manny Ramirez, and even then, Manny Ramirez was kind of a compromise because he didn't have that ability to make the rest of his teammates better, except, for what he did as a player. He was kind of a defensive liability despite the fact that he had a big arm. He was kind of aloof on the base paths. Lindor might actually be the most complete package we have seen because he's a better pure player than Victor was.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, and you bring up Manny, that's perfect because Manny was actually marketable. Manny was marketable for a different reason because Manny was just so goofy. You know what I mean? Like Manny was just likable because he was like he's playing the game like a little kid, but like a little kid who's constantly picking dandelions out in the outfield and then stepping up the plate and hitting home runs. I mean, it's not like for Lindor who's playing the game like a little kid, but like a little kid who every single day wants to win out on the sandlot in the neighborhood because he wants bragging rights and they go get ice cream afterwards. I mean, that's the difference between those two. And it's just, this is the most excited I've been for an Indian season. I was excited in 2008 after that season where they made it all the way to the, they lost to the Boston Red Sox, but it wasn't even close to how excited I am for this year. And a big part of that is Lindor.
Yeah, and on top of that, the Indians are, it's the start of a baseball season. It's the start of a really long baseball season, but Edwin Encarnacion hasn't even started really hitting yet.
Yeah, and some people are freaking out, but anybody who knows anything about Edwin Encarnacion knows that he does kind of start slow, which is a weird thing because a lot of big hitters do, and I don't know why that is in Major League Baseball. But he has a tendency in seasons to start a little slow. But the good thing about Encarnacion is it's not like he had a couple good years and he's had a couple bad years, and you're hoping to have one of those up years. Craig, this guy's done the same thing every year of his career. It never changes. He hits home runs. He doesn't strike out. He has a good batting average. He knocks runners in. You don't have to worry about him. It would be the outlier of all outliers if all of a sudden he had the worst year of his career because it's not like he's hurt. Doesn't look like he's out of shape. This is just the guy's a natural-born hitter, so I don't think anybody who is panicking in the early parts of the season shouldn't be. And I think what they should be doing is excited about the fact that not only is Edwin not hitting, but you don't even have Kipnis back in the lineup yet. And that, I mean, when you add him back in and Edwin starts hitting, all of a sudden your 1 through 7, 1 through 8 on a lot of days is dangerous. And there's no easy outs.
Well, and on top of that, Will, the thing about Encarnacion, he wasn't one of these like marginal power hitters like Nick Swisher. This dude was legit, and has been legit for a long time.
He's one of the best. I mean, legitimately, he was, arguably the number one name on the free agent market. And that's why it was so crazy when the Indians actually signed him, and nobody thought that was going to happen. But, the power that he has comes from, I think, at least because I don't break down people's swings and all that stuff. But as I talk about baseball, the fact that his swing is so natural, it doesn't have to be worked on. It's what he does. You know what I mean? He rolls out of bed and he has that swing and he can, pop one over the fence. And like you said, he's a big time power hitter. It's not just he had a couple good years and he was in a good lineup here and there. No, he's had big years when he was in bad lineups. He is the lineup. He's the guy that you build around in the middle of your lineup.
It's so funny, too, because I see a lot of people complaining or worrying about what they're going to do when Kipnis is back and he's ready to play. This is the best problem the Indians have had. We used to have to think about Josh Barfield.
Yeah. I believe me. Remember Mike Rouse? There's been some... God. Yeah, Mike Rouse. Mike Rouse, if he hit a dribbler to third base, it was a power hit for him. So this is
the definition of a 4A player.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking about one of the. This lineup is special. It went from last year as hopefully the offense can keep up with what the pitching does, and then we were surprised throughout the year because the offense was so good. But then all of a sudden you add in Edwin Encarnacion, and you look at what Michael Brantley did in the home opener. If he's able to consistently hit in clutch situations like he has throughout his entire career, you're talking about one of the best lineups in baseball to pair with one of the best pitching staffs in baseball, to pair with one of the best bullpens in baseball, to pair with probably the most feared pitcher in all of the game in Andrew Miller. It's crazy. And I agree with you. It's a great problem to have, to worry about what you're going to do with guys when others come back from injury.
All right, last thing before I let you go. How big of a risk do you think Junior Dos Santos is to Stipe?
Well, look, it's MMA. Everybody's at risk. And
I know, right?
Junior Santos, yeah, it's any fight you can get. You get caught on the chin one time, you lose your footing, and we've seen that with Stipe. He's got caught, lost his footing, but he survived every time, except for the one where was it
Stephen Struve?
Yeah, and that was a little bit of. I've heard rumors that Stipe was actually injured during that fight, but didn't want to turn it down or walk away from it because it was such a good opportunity for him. But still, we've seen him get caught before, but he's been able to survive it. Look, Dos Santos is one of the greatest fighters on earth now, and probably one of the top 50 fighters ever in UFC history. I mean, he's that good. So yeah, he's certainly a danger to Stipe. But man, I mean, we used to say he had the biggest head on earth, and it's basically like a rock, and he's showing it in the UFC. So until somebody actually proves they can knock this dude out, I'm rolling with Stipe.
Yeah, it's hard not to roll with Stipe, but this is also the first big challenge. You could argue that even his first title defense, he had the big chip on his shoulder because he hadn't defended the title yet, and nobody gets their true respect as a champion until they defend the title one time. And now he's kind of lived as a champion for the last 6 months or whatever it's been. I think that's a different challenge than, anything we've seen Stipe go through.
Yeah, I think so too. There's just a lot that comes along with it. The appearances, the media, all that stuff can distract from your training. Are you 100% focused on fighting? I think one good thing about Stipe, and he'd tell you this as well, is he's just such a simple guy that even though he has to do all that stuff, it doesn't really change his mentality on things. Some people they can go to their head or they can get caught up in it. I just can't imagine that happening with him. And when you talk to him, it doesn't seem like it is whatsoever. If he gets beat, it won't be because the time being champion is a tough transition for him. If he gets beat, it'll be because somebody was just better on that day. Somebody caught him with a shot on that day. And that's always a possibility in MMA. That's every time you step into that cage, somebody can beat you on any given day. But if you train hard enough and you're well enough prepared, you give yourself the best odds of winning. And I think that's always the case with Stipe.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. He didn't switch coaches. He didn't quit his job. He didn't go off and do a Hollywood movie. He's not like so many of these other cautionary tales where, he's going to fail a drug test for coke probably, or all these other things that we've seen other champions slip and fall.
Well, and that's the thing is, while it does suck that they don't think he's quote unquote marketable, and I guess he's really not marketable because he's not flashy and he's not braggadocious and he's not the greatest on the microphone and all this stuff. It's kind of a blessing too, because then you don't, that superstardom quote unquote isn't there to distract you at all times. And like I said, I don't think it would be anyway for him, just because that's the kind of guy he is, and he just is kind of that simple man, going to be a firefighter forever, aw shucks type of guy. But the fact that opportunity is really not even there is, it's a curse for him financially probably. But for inside the cage, it's a blessing. It's
funny, man. His distraction, the version of distraction for Stipe is pumping up the crowd between the third and fourth quarter at a Cavs game that he probably would have gone to anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he'd be sitting there exactly cheering for the same team anyway. And the best part is when he goes and does that, I talked to him before the one time when he first came out with the belt. He said he was unbelievably nervous to walk out there, and his manager at that time was like, "Dude, you just fought a guy in another country where the entire crowd was chanting kill him," and you weren't nervous at all." And he's like, "I don't know, man. I don't like talking on microphones." That's Stipe right there. I mean, in a nutshell, he'll go out and punch somebody in the face in another country where everyone wants him to die in the cage, but getting on that microphone, man, that's the thing that really scares him.
All right, thanks so much for coming on, Will. Can you give your plug one more time?
Yeah, Monday through Friday, noon to 2, makelunchNotSuck.com, and then we'll have an iHeart Radio channel, which should actually be up here either probably by the time people can listen to this, the iHeart Radio channel will be up there with a couple interviews that we have previously recorded. Myself, Dave Movern from 96.5 Sports, Comedy, Music. The lunch break, man, should be a good time.
And you're listening to this on Thursday probably, or maybe Friday, so it starts on Friday. So
yeah, it starts on Friday, and then I need a well-deserved weekend off because one day of work is tough. And then I'll be back next week, and we'll be on every day unless there's a day Indians game. Those days we will not be on. It'll just be a best of or something. I don't know.
All right, and I'm sure we'll be able to see, even if you can't catch the show, I'm sure we'll see, individual clips of interviews and all kinds of cool stuff, because It sounds like you've got a lineup of guests already.
Yeah, we have. I can't say some of the names, but the few I can. We have some Playboy Playmates coming on. We have the lead singer Skid Row. Bill Burr is coming in studio with us, one of the greatest comedians of all time. And some massive guests that are going to be on with us.
By the way, I'm sorry I keep extending, but are you going to see Bill Burr? He's coming to Hilarities of all places.
Yes, and he's going to be there 2 days, and of course I'm going to go see him. I mean, he's my favorite comedian ever, absolutely hilarious, and just a good dude too. I actually took him up, hung out with him, and when I was out doing stand-up comedy, I was out in Hollywood with my buddy Jason Lawhead, who actually lives out there but is from Lorain, Elyria, and I was at his house and we were watching the NCAA tournament a couple years ago, And he told me he would come on the radio show, and I never took him up on it until now. And I hit up Lawhead and I said, "You tell Bill I'm cashing in that IOU because I need him now." And he's a good man. He came through for me. That's
so cool. We'll have to talk offline and figure out if we're going to the same show, because to see Bill Burr in a place the size of Hilarities in 2017 is just incredible.
Oh, it's crazy, and it's one of the best clubs on earth. He loves that place. He loves Nick Costas, as most comedians do, and it's truly a blessing in Cleveland that we have one of the best comedy clubs in the country here.
Absolutely. All right, thanks so much for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you next time. It's been the WaitingForNextYear.com podcast.